Hey guys, how's it going? Unrested back here, and today we're going to talk about something that's very dear to my heart and my life, and that is the education system in Japan. Obviously something that I am a part of, as I am an ALT, and I do teach here in Japan. I've pretty much worked a little bit of everything due to the fact that I've worked for a dispatch company, so I can pretty much go through almost every level aside from maybe preschool and tell you a little bit about each. Now, this is going to be pretty much only to the Osaka area. It's probably going to differ in other parts of Japan, so don't take my word as a generalization for all the education throughout Japan. Also, realize what I'm referring to is pretty much the samples that I've gotten from each school. Every school is going to be a little bit different, maybe have a little bit different lesson plan or follow something a bit different due to the fact that they have different boards of education in each prefecture. So, let's go ahead and get into it. Start with kindergarten. Kindergarten in Japan might be a little bit different from what you're used to in the States. We pretty much go to kindergarten for 1 year. But here in Japan, there's actually usually 3 levels of kindergarten. You've got K1, K2, and K3. They're usually split up into what would look like almost a giant kindergarten public school. That's the best way I can describe it. What I've done with these places is I've actually gone out there as a dispatch teacher, and all I do is teach the English section of their lessons for the day. That means the rest of the day they're doing different stuff like arts and crafts. They usually learn a little bit of ethics, manners type stuff like that, very basic stuff. Maybe some very, very basic hiragana and even ABCs that I won't even be there teaching. It's on their own. But pretty much what you're going to do if you're working in that situation, you're going to come in, you're going to sing a little bit of songs, you're going to go ahead and show them some flashcards with letters. It's mostly going to be games, songs, and maybe some arts and crafts. Another thing that I did teach to kindergartners ages 3 through 6 is I taught in after-school Yuichien Ikayawa, which is like a kindergarten English conversation school. And pretty much what they did there is after about 4:30 they'd come. It was pretty much like a little playground for them, but was inside. They had all kinds of stuff like a ball pit, things to climb around with. And what I did really for the first 20 minutes, all you do is play with them. I mean, you really just sit there and like build Legos, move little Matchbox cars around and stuff like that. And then after that, you teach them a little bit of English, but it's not too intense. You start off with a song, a hello song, an introduction song. Next, we'd go around and introduce all ourselves. If anybody new had come, they'd introduce themselves, pretty much just say their name. That's it. After that, we'd get into some cards such as very simple words. Today's theme is fruits. We just do, you know, Ringo, apple, yasai for vegetables. We'd go through all the vegetables. Every month usually would change into a different theme, but we'd study the same ones at least once a week. And nothing too intense, like I said. After that, you usually would have arts and crafts. We'd make something that was related to the lesson, i.e. like apple snacks that have marshmallows and look like teeth. Okay, wow. And after that, usually we'd have story time. And those usually were the stories you're used to. Back in the States, you know, everything from the 3 Little Pigs, Red Riding Hood, the 3 Bears, all different stuff like that. And we're pretty much telling them classic Western fairy tales and stuff like that. After that, usually we'd have a closing song that would be the goodbye song, and we'd all say goodbye. They'd get a sticker for the day for coming, and that was pretty much it. And that's pretty much like an after-school Yoichi Nikaiwa kindergarten English conversation school. Okay, so next up we have elementary school, and elementary school usually covers grades 1 through 6, okay, and they're called Ichinensei on up to Rokunensei, and pretty much what they're going to do is they're going to go to a basic public school that is actually compulsory in Japan. They have to go to this. Their parents have to send them to this, and this is going to cover things like everything from math, science, history, learning Japanese, and again, where I come in, English teacher. Obviously, I don't teach all the different things here in Japan because I'm not actually a qualified teacher in Japan. Okay, so pretty much what I come in and do is I come in with this little book here. In Osaka, this is standard. It's called Eigo Noto, okay? And this one pretty much teaches the kids all they're going to learn for grades 5 and 6. Underneath grades 5 and 6, they're not going to be using this book. It's mostly just going to be a little bit of fun and games. But This is going to be their first introduction to actually using a text to learn English here in Osaka, that is. I don't know, it might be totally different in Tokyo. Now, in America, we say hello, right? Aisatsu, hello, right? But in other countries, hoka no kuni, okay, we have different ways to say hello, okay? Choto chigao, aisatsu, right? Let's take a look at some of these other ones. What do we have here?
China!
Yeah, that's right, China. Ni hao, ni hao. Okay.
Ni hao.
Down here we have Africa. Jumbo, jumbo, who can say that?
Jumbo!
Very good, Daichi. Excellent. Okay, up here we have France. Bonjour. Okay.
Bonjour.
Who can do that? Who can
Bonjour!
do that? Ayako. Very nice. Excellent. Okay. Over here, Brazil. Boa tarde. Boa tarde. Okay, my Portuguese isn't that good. Sorry, guys. Alright. But, what do we have over here? Russia. That's right. Very good. Yay. Very good. Okay. Russia. Strastovicia. Strastovicia. Okay? Try to ignore my pronunciation. I know. Waru Yatson. I talked about using flashcards in the Yochien, and this is going to continue on into elementary school and actually become even more important. Hey, everybody. Today's flashcards are bugs.
Yay.
That's right. What's bugs? Nihongo de, Nihongo de. Shiteru no hito. Yes? Nakamura?
Mushi!
That's right, Mushi. Very good. Excellent. Okay, so let's take a look. Ready? Repeat after me. Ladybug.
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 Mosquito.
Mosquito.
Mosquito. That's
Mosquito.
a little bit difficult. I know. Choto musukashi desu ne. Okay, what's next? Dragonfly.
Dragonfly.
Very good. Dragonfly.
Dragonfly.
Good. Okay. Beetle. Beetle. Who knows
Beetle.
what beetle is in Japanese? Can anybody tell me?
Kabutomushi!
Yeah, good. They're going to have a good deal of their classes filled with all kinds of different cards, because in Japan it's really all about memorization. Tango, vocabulary, is all about memorization, and they're going to be pretty much tested to get into their junior high school on a lot of this vocabulary that you're teaching them now. So pretty much they find it vital that they get taught these again and again each year. You're going to go through the same things almost every year up from 1 to 6th grade, and pretty much what this stuff consists of is everything from how are you, emotions, okay? We've got weather, you know, kyo no tenki wa nan desu ka? And then we've got, again, vegetables, again, fruit, and even some of your basic foods. Like they start to teach them things like you don't call it curry rice, you call it curry and rice, okay? You also get into some international stuff. They learn a little bit about some other countries, such as saying ni hao in China and different things like that. Just they learn a little bit of each, and actually you're the one who gets to teach this stuff. So it's a little bit interesting. You learn a bit about some international stuff yourself. I know I've definitely learned a lot of different flags from other countries teaching English. Kind of strange, but it happens. Next, we're getting into junior high school, okay? And junior high school pretty much starts with grade 7, 8, and then 9. They only have 3 years of junior high school. So you've got 3 different levels to teach. Pretty much with the first year students that are in there, you're going to get back into the same stuff that you might have taught in elementary if you did teach there. And they're even going to start over again with how are you? Sadly enough, they're still back to that, and they're learning the feelings once more. I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm fine, and ichibansuki, I'm so-so. You'll see they love that one. And also, you're going to get into your next year, and those students are finally going to start getting into forming some of their own sentences themselves, maybe doing some fill-in-the-blanks, starting to finally learn how to conjugate some verbs, and learning superlatives and stuff like that. But it's still pretty basic. You're not going to get into any kind of major sentence diagramming or anything like that, and you're definitely not going to hear any students that are speaking fluently unless you have maybe some exchange students or half students or maybe kids who've actually traveled overseas, which, I mean, it's few and far between. Probably Tokyo, you're going to get a lot more of that. Some people who work in Tokyo have told me they actually had kids in their schools that were fluent, but I have yet to find that while teaching in Osaka, so maybe more rare in junior high school. The final year of junior high school is a pretty intense one for them because this is where they're trying to get into their high school, and this can be very competitive. high school in Japan is not compulsory, and that means they do not have to go there. And that also means high schools do not have to accept students that they don't want. Those who do really well in placement tests do get into some of the best schools, and the schools will actually even ask to get them in, but they're still very expensive, and they have to pass quite high. They go to these after-school, what's called a juku, and that means cram school, and they study, and memorize. Third year, all about memorization. Now, they're learning little by little as they go through each year, but really it comes down to that third year of absolutely blowing their brain out with loads and loads of words, and even full memorization of sentences and sentence structures. That doesn't necessarily mean they know how to make a sentence on their own, but they definitely can look at a page, copy it, or memorize it to their brain by that point. I mean, these guys are memorized machines at this point. You'll also get into speech contests with third year. You might be helping them out write their speeches and say their speeches. There's usually a list that the teacher gives them of speeches they can choose from, and you will get so sick of hearing these speeches again and again. But you gotta help them out with this. They're pretty difficult, and I would say even for someone of the same age, they would actually be pretty difficult just to get out in a clear, good presentation. So imagine this coming as a second language. I mean, that's a real challenge for them. Some of them go so far as to try and write their own, but usually you end up correcting quite a bit of it. I had some students before who were bent on not following the list, and I thought that was great. I thought it was great that they were gambatteng, you know, they were really trying to make up their own stuff. But when I finally got their papers, it was so discombobulated, I had to tell them, look, you got to go back to the list. I can't even understand what you're writing about. But that was just at the one school I was at. I've been at other ones where their speaking is not so hot, but their writing skills are amazing, and some of them actually impressed me quite a bit with some of the stuff they've come up with. Alright, next up, high school, or as it sometimes is called in Japan, senior high school, which I'm not really too partial to, but whatever. Okay, high school. Things have gotten serious. If you thought the last year of junior high school was serious, you have not seen it until you step into a high school. Like I said, this is not compulsory. Kids do not have to go to high school. They can stop school after junior high school. And really, if their parents don't care and they haven't really worked very hard themselves, they're probably not going. No offense to those people that go off to pursue other things, but that's just the way it works in Japan. I'm not trying to downplay either path. Okay, so they go off to high school. They've got studying, and loads of memorization. Yeah, I said they did it in junior high school, but man, do they ever have to do it now. Because what are they getting ready for? What do you think? Placement tests for college. Their school day is pretty much like a 12-hour workday. I mean, these kids get there early in the morning sometimes for all different types of clubs that are associated with the school. They might start as early as 6 to 6:30 a.m. and their day may end as late, and I'm saying after Juku, that's after school, cram school, might end as late as 10 or 11 o'clock. No joke. For example, my wife, she went to a very nice high school. I won't say exactly where, but it was a very nice one. And she talked about how her day would be anywhere from 12 to 13 hours of just hard book work. And she talked about how when it got close to placement tests, that she would get so little sleep, it would be maybe only 3 to 2 hours a night. And still, to this day, sometimes she wakes up at night saying she had a nightmare. When I ask her what it was about, college placement tests taken in high school. Yeah, they're that bad. Now, I know there's still college to cover after high school, but I'm going to go ahead and stop at high school. And you're going to say, why? But I've never actually taught in college, so I really don't think I can be any sort of expert on it or give you any kind of advice about teaching in college. So what I will do is leave it to those J-vloggers who are actually in college in Japan themselves, as obviously they are far more versed in the topic. I've never been to college in Japan, and I've never taught at it, so I really have no background on it. I don't feel that it would be appropriate for me to try and make a JFAQ on that. But there you go. You've got kindergarten all the way up to high school. I'll give you a little bit about what my life is like inside of those and a little bit about the system. Before I end this JFAQ, I thought I'd just throw a few quick facts out there about schools here in Osaka. Number one, most of the schools here were actually built right after World War II. The blueprints that were used to build most of the schools that you see here in Osaka were actually used from American prison blueprints. I know that seems a bit harsh, but They wanted to have all the same construction, and they wanted rooms that were perfectly sectioned out that would have room for students and be set up in a way that you could go to any school in the area and know how to get around. Because if you take a look at almost any school in Osaka, that's elementary school, junior high school, not including high schools, not including colleges, they're built almost exactly the same way and almost like an E shape. Okay? If you get a chance to teach at one or see one from an overhead view, you'll understand what I mean. Until then, you probably won't exactly know what I'm talking about. Another thing is the Board of Education here in Osaka pretty much standardizes all the tests and all the information that we'll be giving. That means if I know a school all the way out in Hirokata and I teach all the way out in Tonoji, we will actually be teaching the same thing even though we were miles and miles and miles away. So, standardized, very standardized, and almost always using the same book. The cleanliness of schools in Osaka is not exactly the best. You probably wonder, aren't there janitors on the premises to keep everything nice and neat and clean? Well, that's not exactly how it works in Japan. In Japan, the student is supposed to honor the school by having an hour of osoji. Sometimes it's a little bit less, sometimes a little bit more. At the school I teach at currently, it's only about maybe 15 minutes, so last school was about 45 minutes of osoji. And osoji means cleaning, and you're supposed to honor the osoji, honor the cleaning, and honor your school. And it's supposed to almost act as a way to pay back the teachers for the education they're giving you by cleaning up all the classrooms and the hallways. Less to say, if you put the hands of cleaning a school to students that are not exactly excited to be there, usually schools don't stay very clean. I'd say in general, schools don't really tend to look too clean in Japan as far as public schools are concerned. Now, private schools are a totally different story. I have seen some gorgeous private schools. Now, of course, in inner city areas in the States, this is also true as far as dilapidation of schools. But in Japan, it can be pretty bad sometimes, such as, like, I had one school that I taught at in Tondabayashi where the ceiling was falling down. It was coming apart. I guess they had no maintenance there. And pretty much there was broken furniture in the hallways. It was torn apart. It was a very poor area, so the school had a lot of problems with, the students' parents were not paying a lot of the fees to upkeep on the school, even though it's a public school. I know you're thinking fees. What fees? It's a public school. Well, even in public school, you have to pay fees for uniform, you have to pay fees for textbooks, okay? So there's still a little bit of money attached to sending your kid to free government schooling. And because a lot of this stuff never got paid, they couldn't even upkeep basic stuff on the school, sadly. And I mean, there was even rooms with no electricity and stuff like that. And I know it sounds really archaic and you think, how do they even teach in this situation? Well, I mean, they did the best they could. They were good teachers, and they were really nice people, and they really treated me well, and they treated the kids really darn good. But it was just a difficult situation because it was a very poor part of town. And we even had things like, not enough chalk for the chalkboards, not every kid had a book. Most of the kids, even though they had uniforms, usually didn't come to school in their uniform because either they couldn't afford it or they only had one, so if it got dirty, they couldn't wear it the rest of the week. So I've seen some of the poorest areas, and it doesn't differ too much from what you would expect in inner city schools in America. That's right, people still struggle financially out here in Japan. As I've said before, it's not a wonderland. There you are. Education in Japan through the eyes of Scott. I say through the eyes of Scott because other experiences will vary. Please do not write me angry emails. You generalize about Japan. I am saying this is my personal experience. You might get something totally different. And also, of course, if you're teaching at Kaiwa, that's very, very different from what I'm doing. And you might be teaching JET program, which is also a little bit different. And as I said, experiences will vary. Don't write to me that, is it going to be exactly like yours? Because no, it's not. Okay, that's JFAQ, Education System. I'll see you next time. Send questions. I'll try to write back. Peace.